I can't look at the rocket launch, the trophy wives of the astronauts, and I won't listen to their words, 'cause I like birds.
Right after or during a rain are the best times to come and see where the erosion is happening. Here's another drainage. Very similar elevation in the landscape. I'm actually a little lower in elevation. That rock ledge is right there. You can see where the slope changes. And if you look down here, you can see where all the leaves have been washed out of the gully. So that's where we had fast-moving water that was picking up soil. And then I can see some places in there where leaves were getting trapped. There's a log right there.
All right, so I'm really happy I found this video. This was filmed in May of 2024, and we were in the middle of a massive locust outbreak, and so that's what you're hearing really loud in the background. But this is a video about gullies, and you can see these ribbons. We just had a big rain, and the water was moving, and it basically flushed all the leaves out of the gully. And here the gully hasn't formed very deep at all. We're pretty high in the upland. I'll show you on a map later in the video. And I wanted to show you this. This is why I stopped it. You can see a line right here. It gets a little gray right here. It's not so sharp. It's more subtle right here. But over here it's pretty distinct. And it looks like it goes all the way around, and we have a gully here going up into the field and a gully here going up into the field, and there's at least one here. It might fork. So basically what I wanted to show you is this break right here in the soil. Above this it's relatively flat, it's really easy walking, and then once you get to this point the slope picks up. So the soil changes right there. And where that slope picks up, you can see the gully right there. It continues going up into the summit, onto the ridge. I'm going to talk about debris traps, putting debris traps in the gullies. And that's why I'm showing you this video, because it has a really good example of a naturally formed one. I'm going to come back to this, but this break is really important. The water flow is slow up here, and it picks up speed as it reaches this point. And when it breaks over, it's going pretty fast, and it crashes down, and it tumbles and runs and washes down really fast. At this breakover point, it's speeding up, right, as it goes over. But we also have to remember that it's pulling as well. And so it's pulling water from out of the field. So as the water is coming out of the field up here, it goes faster and faster. Even if the slope stays the same, the water moves faster and faster, approaching this breaking point. And so there's a lot of stress on this breaking point right here as far as water flow and water speed.
Washed out of the gully. So that's where we had fast-moving water that was picking up soil. And then I can see some places in there where leaves were getting trapped.
You see right here? There's a bunch of debris that's piled up right there. And the water has washed everything, and then it piled up right here, and the water had force pushing it back. That's just one little example. If you look around in this video, you might see a few more. There's one right here as well.
There's a log right there. uphill side of that log, the elevation looks like it's about 2 feet higher than the downstream side of that log. And so just imagine having...
Yeah, so here is an example of a big debris trap. Look at all the debris it's caught. It's over 2 feet higher than the downstream side. So this is regenerating soil. Now it's possible for this to wash out and for a lot of this progress to get lost. That's a real risk. I don't think it's that great of a risk, considering how old that log is. It looks like it was this tree here. Looks like it's been doing its job for quite a while. Now, the next step would be to come down here and put another one in right here and start building that soil up below that log. And a series of these can be made going down the gully. However, this isn't the area you want to start.
About 2 feet higher than the downstream side of that log. And so just imagine having sections of log. You could come out here with a shovel, and in an hour you could stair step this entire gully, even the branches. And just take a shovel and a chainsaw and make some steps. Start building the soil back. It all begins out there in the field, and so it looks like these gullies run all the way up to the field edge pretty close. And so I would make the field edge more of a buffer around these gullies, and I would also build some steps in the field to catch soil, slow the water down, increase infiltration, and reduce this erosion that's happening. I'll show you where we're at on the map. We're right here. This is the creek, the gully that we were just looking at. And it goes down into this pond. In this pond, the dam was cut and the pond is drained. And so that pond is really doing a good job of catching sediment, but you might want to go look at this area right here and see about slowing water down through this section here. And anywhere where the slope drops off and it's not as steep, that would be a good area to make traps, catch some water.
Okay, I just want to go back to this back here and talk just a little bit more about these debris traps real quick. It's hard to navigate with this. It's like all or nothing. Okay, perfect. So, like I said before, once the water starts picking up slope or speed and force when it's on the slope, the debris traps are a little more of a challenge. When you're up here on the flat ground, there's not as much water force and speed, and so the debris traps have a longer life. Once you get on the slope, when we get a heavy rain, they're liable to blow out. All that water is liable to blow them out. So it's good to put them on here, but they're just going to require more work. And you can see this area here looks like it's more steep than this area here. So maybe this area would be more of a priority than this steep part. But with that said, you always want to start on the very top. The very top is a priority. That's where all the water is coming from. All the water in this gully is not coming from here. It's coming from up here, spread over acres. And so you want to get that, ideally, you get it infiltrated into the soil up there by having a suitable mix of vegetation covering the soil. I believe this is a agriculture crop field, corn, when I was there. So the goalie goes to the edge of the field, maybe, take a little bit of that corn out of production and put in some vegetation to slow the water down, and then bam, it immediately hits the goalie. But right there, when it immediately hits it, it also hits a debris trap, and then another debris trap, and then another debris trap. And they can be spaced 10 to 50 to 100 feet, whatever. I don't think it matters too much how far they're spaced, because that really is going to be dependent on site conditions, especially slope. The greater the slope, the closer you're going to want to put them. Now, as far as constructing them, there's all kinds of logs on the ground in here. And I've been looking at this video, and I'm going to make another one about the ecology. The ecology in here is very interesting, and it's kind of typical for our area. And so I'm going to make another video about the ecology here.
They're in the field.
Let's see, I'm going to do something here really quick. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about this, about the materials. It doesn't need to be like a watertight dam. It just needs to be a stick or two. When I say stick, I mean like one of these mid-story sized trees. So you could take that one log and jam it across right there, and maybe take a shovel and dig out a little and kind of lodge it into the soil a little bit so it's stuck in there good. Or maybe there's some trees and you can tie it up or lay it up against the tree in a way that it's, when the water pushes it against the tree and it's stuck there. Just figure out a way to kind of lodge it in there so it doesn't get washed out unless it's a really big rain. And that'll improve the life. And so you come out here on your first year and you put one there, and you put one or two at the top of each of these gullies. And that's your priority in the beginning. And basically you start regenerating those, start getting those gullies filled in. The next year you come in and you put 2 to 3 more up here. Maybe you have to rebuild one, or maybe you just add all new ones. And maybe you put another 1 or 2 down here. So you're basically doing it in stages. Year 3, you come back, you might see some deterioration, rebuild. Maybe you're going to start moving down the slope a little now. And you just move down the slope year after year after year, and you can eventually get this filled in. And within 10 years, you can make a really big difference. You might not get it all the way filled in, but you're going to make a big difference. Why do this? Why is this important? Well, that's a great question, and I don't think it's obvious. We have abundant rain here, so it's not like we're worried about holding water on the land like they are in New Mexico or other arid regions. But it's very subtle what's happening. So because of these gullies, the water is picking up speed, and when it hits these gullies, it's like a pipe, and it gets piped off the property at that point. The water is moving so fast that it rarely slows down. It might slow down in a few places where it pools up, but it doesn't slow down enough to infiltrate into the soil. And because it's speeding up and pulling out of this field, it's also not infiltrating up here, And because it's a row crop field, it's also not infiltrating because of that. So what that means is this soil is more dry than it was 100, 150 years ago. Before this gully formed, this gully wasn't here before this field was cleared of forest. So since that time, this gully is formed, and since that time, the soils have been getting drier and drier. And all the farmers know that everybody has to dig their well deeper every 10 years or so because the water table gets lower and lower. This is one of the reasons. There's a lot of reasons the water table is going down. This is just one of them. But if you look at the acreage that this occurs on, it's widespread. And so it adds up. It's a really big reason. And if you talk to the old timers, they'll tell you that our creeks used to hold water year round, whereas now they dry out in the middle of the summer when it gets dry. And this is the reason. Because water used to infiltrate into the soil and then it would slow release. There would be seeps on the sides of these hills where water, once this got saturated, water would start seeping out over the next month after a heavy rain. And so you've got this month where water is continuously being added, and that gets lost. That whole month or whatever it would be is completely lost, completely taken away from this ecosystem. And so it alters the hydrology. And noticeable effects as far as the trees go is it increases their risk. It increases their vulnerability to drought. So they go into drought sooner because the soils are more dry. They stay in drought longer. And it also increases their vulnerability to insect and disease issues. And so it definitely decreases their growth rate and productivity. Again, this might be subtle, but if we're talking about a millimeter of growth a year over 100 years, that adds up. And so that's just in the trees. There's all this other life that's happening, life in the soil, life in animals that pass through and visit, such as neotropical songbirds or white-tailed deer. So whenever you can restore these gullies and start to restore hydrology, you see more productivity in the ecosystem. You see that when we're in a drought, the trees in this area are a little more green. You see that whenever there's an insect or disease outbreak, there's less dead trees in this area. That's a big thing. And I think it's really subtle because one, we're in our houses, we're not out here paying attention to this. We're doing our thing, so it's not in our face. And two, these trees are long lived and it's a really small thing, but it's really big. It's got this paradox to it. So that's why you want to do this gully restoration. And I see these gullies on pretty much every farm that has had agriculture on it, for 100 years or so at least. Yeah, we can see a lot more little logs down here, and we can see how this log here is kind of affecting the course of the water. I'm excited to make a video about the ecology here, looking at it. Okay, thank you for watching, if you managed to get this far. And if there's anything you'd like to see, any topics you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. And thanks for watching.